We are in a message series called Run the Race, and it's based on Matthew 25. Matthew 25, the way I picture it happening is that Jesus is right at the finish line of his life. You get into Matthew 26 and you start talking Last Supper, Judas betrays Jesus, all the stuff that we talked about during Lent, the last week of Jesus' life. And so Matthew 25 is really Jesus right at the finish line, kind of stretching out, just getting ready to cross the finish line. And if you've ever seen a race, you know that right before you cross the finish line, the runners kind of look over their shoulder to see where everybody else in the race is. And the way I picture it is that Jesus kind of looks over his shoulder and sees 200 generations of people running this race with him. He looks over his shoulder and he sees you, and he sees me, and he sees us, and he sees this church, and just before he crosses the finish line, he says, "Time out. I need to give my friends some instructions so they don't get lost during this race, so that they are able to finish the race the same way I finished the race." And so Jesus in Matthew 25 tells three stories. And the first one I like to call the on your mark story. This is the beginning, be prepared kind of story with the wise and the foolish bridesmaids. We started it last week and we're going to get into it a little deeper today, so hold on to that one. The second story Jesus tells is the story of the bags of gold. I call this the get set parable. You may remember this one. He gives one 5 bags of gold and one 3 bags of gold and another one bag of gold. And some of them invest and some of them do not. And so Jesus reminds us to invest the gifts that we've been given. And the last story Jesus tells in Matthew 25 is what I consider kind of a scary story. It's the ghost story. This is the story of the sheep and the goats, and Jesus tells this story to tell us who's going to finish the race and what it really takes to truly cross the finish line with Jesus. So I'd like to invite you, if you brought a Bible today, to turn with me to Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25, and I want to remind you of the story, the on your mark story that Jesus begins telling. He says this: "At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins or 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went home to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 of them were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, 'Here comes the bridegroom, come out and meet him.' All of the bridesmaids woke up, they trimmed their lamps, and the foolish ones said to the wise, 'Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out.' But the wise ones said, 'No, there may not be enough for both of us and you. Instead, go out to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves.' But while they were on their way to buy oil, the bridegroom arrived, and the virgins or the bridesmaids who were ready with him went into the banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others came out. 'Sir,' they said, 'open the door for us.' But he replied, 'I tell you the truth, I do not know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour.'" Now, last week, Pastor Brent began to teach on this story that Jesus told in one of what I can only describe as one of the best sermons I've ever heard. I want to encourage you, if you weren't here last week or you missed it or you just want to go back and hear a great sermon, go on our website, check it out. We had a few sound issues, but push through that because the content is there. And what Brent reminded us was that there is a reason that the wise bridesmaids did not share their oil with the unwise ones or the foolish ones. Because oil, he said, is not transferable. Oil is not transferable. The external flame that the oil feeds is what we share with the world. And this is why Jesus says you can't put your light under a basket. You know, these types of things. You're a flame, that external part of what God is doing in your life, that is what you share with the world. But what feeds that flame is the internal oil inside of you. And that oil is the work that you do, the disciplines that you have in your life in order to stay in spiritual shape. And Brent reminded us last week that you cannot run someone else's race. Some of y'all need to write that down. Especially you parents who are praying right now for your kids and their faith journey. You cannot run someone else's race. You grandparents who are praying for grandchildren, you friends who are praying for other friends, you people who have gotten lost and gotten off the path and gotten lost in the race, you cannot train for someone else's race. But you can train alongside them and bring them with you. The oil represents your discipleship journey, and it's really about what kind of shape are you in? Sometimes I get asked, hey, Dave, are you in shape? And I said, of course I am. Round is a shape. You know, of course I'm in shape. What are you talking about? So the question we're wrestling with today is, how do we, as people who are running this Jesus race, how do we stay in shape? How do we keep our oil full? In Philippians chapter 2, Paul reminds us, therefore, dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation. Hear that, church? Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you and will act in order to fulfill his good purpose. And I know some of you are looking at that scripture going, wait a minute, I thought once I was saved, I'm always saved. What does continue to work out your salvation mean? Well, salvation is not just about a destination someday. It's about a journey you're on today. And Paul reminds us we have to continue to work out and stay in shape. Today, I want to get really practical with what that looks like. Because I know sometimes we here at church, we can say things like, keep your oil lamp full. And you're like, great image, but what does that even mean in my real life? So I want to get real practical today. Listen to what else Paul says about the race. 1 Corinthians 9, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. Don't miss that. Strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, he says, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating against the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself might not be disqualified from the prize. Now, let me get real honest with some of you today. When our worship design team sat down with Matthew 25 and we were thinking about a metaphor that would really kind of carry this message, and somebody suggested the metaphor of running a race, I immediately went, because I'm just not a runner. And every time you say the word run the race, the first thing that pops into my head was the one race I ever ran. It was the Air Force Half Marathon. Look, I even have the shirt. I can see, all I got was this stupid t-shirt and a hamstring injury. Yeah, right. Anyway, my friend came to me and said, Dave, I was working on some fitness goals at the time, and I wanted to be able to run a 5K anytime. Right? Anytime somebody said, hey, let's go out and run, I wanted to be able to run 3 miles any day. And so I was doing all right with that goal in mind. And so my friend comes to me and says, Dave, you got to run the Air Force Half Marathon with me. And here's what my brain said. This is the math that I did in my head. If you can run 3 miles 4 days a week, you ought to be able to run 13 miles 1 day of the week. Right? That's how it works, isn't it? Isn't that how it should work? So So I signed up for this half marathon with that math in my head, and it was everything he described it was going to be. Thousands and thousands of people there, F-16s flying over our heads right at the start. And so they shoot the gun, and I'm off to running, and I hit 3 miles, and you know what happened? I was done. Right? I mean, that was it. That's all I had ever trained for. That was as far as I had ever run. And so I hit 3 miles and I went, ruh-roh. I've got 3 more of those to run. There are 10 more miles in this race. And I had this deep sense of dread. And I started thinking, you know, I could fake an ankle injury and one of those cool golf carts would come pick me up, right? So I decided, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk a mile and then run a mile, walk a mile and then run a mile. And that worked for a little while. It got me to about mile 8. And that wasn't too bad. But by then, I just couldn't run another mile. So I started shrinking it to maybe just a half a mile, and then I'd walk a mile. Then it was a quarter of a mile. By the time I got to mile 11, it was like just run to that light pole. And then that light pole. And then that, some of you have been where I am right now. I'm in the worst pain I've ever been in my life, just miserable. And at mile 12, something happened that I will never forget as long as I live. At mile 12, a guy in his, had to have been mid-80s, passed me. And now, that's not the funny part, because that had been happening all day. I mean, I was getting passed by strollers, little girls were going to run past me. What are you doing, mister? Right? You know, it's just, I've been passed all day long. But this one guy I remember, because as he passed me, I looked at the back of his T-shirt. And on the back of his T-shirt, it says, I'm running this race on a borrowed heart and 4 fake valves. And I'm like, crap. Now I got to run this, you know? And so my only goal in life, don't let this guy beat me. That was at that moment, that was my only goal in life. So I tried to stay right with him as close as I could. And right about 100 yards left from the finish, I kind of kicked it in and finished it in front of him. I was like, ha! I don't know what I thought I was winning, but I didn't walk again for about the next month. Right? And for sure. And what they don't tell you is that they don't give these T-shirts out at the finish line. Like, all I had to do to get this T-shirt was pay the fee and pick it up the night before. I never had to run the race in the first place. Why didn't somebody let me in on that little secret? So as you can imagine, this metaphor of running the race is a little foreign to me. So I thought we would ask some experts in the field. So I've invited the John family to come up. Will you welcome them as they come? These folks, probably know more about running the race than I'll ever forget. Because when I think about people who run, I think about you guys. Let me make sure this microphone is on for you. All right, here we go. And I'll let you guys pass it around. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Now, you guys, like I said, when I think about runners, I follow you on Facebook and all this kind of stuff. When I think about runners, I think, man, it's the John family. How did you guys get into running?
I ran in high school, but running for the girls started right here at this church with Girls on the Run.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Girls on the Run.
It's a non-competitive running program to introduce elementary girls, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade to running and teaches self-esteem. And
I love it. So you guys started with Girls on the Run, is that right? Now, you guys are on running teams now, right? Tell us a little bit about the teams that you guys are on.
I'm on the middle school cross-country team where we run 2 miles, and I'm also on the rapid run track team.
Oh, cross-country, that just sounds like a long way, doesn't it? Yeah, how about you?
I'm on the Oak Hills cross-country team and Oak Hills track team.
Awesome, and I forgot, some of these people may not know you guys. Will you tell everybody your names so that we can say hi to you later?
I'm Megan John, and I'm in 9th grade.
All right.
I'm Robin, and I'm in 7th grade.
And Robin has been here since 8:15 this morning because she was in confirmation class this morning. So how about that? All right, Mom and Dad, will you guys introduce yourselves as well?
hi, I'm Christine.
And I'm Mike.
Mike, all right. So tell us a little bit about, as you guys have learned to run in these races, what does it take to prepare for a race? What are the things you need to do in order to be ready to run at the level you're running?
You have to make sacrifice and realize that maybe today won't be your best time, but you can still try your best.
Awesome. I love that. Make sacrifice. Y'all hear that? And even if today isn't your best day, all right? Ron, how about you?
It takes a lot of time and training.
Yeah. What kind of training do you do? Like, I'm watching this video. I'm watching you, like, jump up on boxes and do push-ups with rubber bands on your feet. And I'm just like, no thanks. What kind of training do you do?
Strength training. Some days we do distance training, and other days we do speed training.
Okay. And how often do you train?
Like 6 days a week.
Did y'all hear that? 6 days a week. You know, we come to church for an hour a week and think, ooh, aren't I good? Right? 6 days a week, these guys are training. Now, Mom and Dad, what does it take for you guys to have athletes at their level? What kind of commitment do you guys have to put in to support them?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of time management, quite frankly. We invest our time in them. So some people might say you sacrifice time. I take time off of work. I burn vacation hours. But for me, that's not really a sacrifice. That's an investment in being part of what they're doing. But getting them two practices to and from. Time management is huge, and making conscious decisions as to what we need to do. Sometimes we need to split our time because they're on different training schedules. But being involved and active, encouraging, and quite frankly, they're inspiring to us as well. Yeah.
Now, you guys run individual races. Tell us a little bit about your best time and what distance?
I run the 2 miles with cross country, and my best time was 13:26. But when I run 3 miles, it's 24:25.
Awesome. And how about you?
My best 5K time is 19:19.
Whew. So 24 and 19. The best I ever did in a 5K was 34 minutes. So what would it take for Dave to get to 19 or to eat 24 minutes? What would it take for me?
A car.
A car, right. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. She's like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be nice to adults. Right? What would I... So maybe I can't get to 19 minutes, but could I get a little faster? What would I have to do to get faster?
Put in some extra hours towards training.
Yeah, extra hours towards training. What do you think I'd have to do?
You'd have to give up going to events with your friends, maybe.
I thought she was going to say Burger King. Oh, come on, give me a high five. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
To train more.
So give up events. Now, I've heard that you guys have not gone to school dances and sleepovers and stuff like that because you have big races and really sacrifice time, energy, and commitment. Now, Mom and Dad, tell us a little bit about where you see, this takes a lot to be at this level. Do you see any of the lessons that you all are learning as a family kind of bleeding over into other areas of your life, your work life, your social life, maybe even your faith life?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's a definite parallel with faith because, this journey is not always easy. And there's setbacks. If you haven't noticed, I don't really have the Corvette chassis.
Yeah. You and me don't have really those runner bodies, do we?
Right. I'm more like Mater from Cars, So, but I do what I can to try and keep up. And one of the things I like to try to do is when they're running cross-country races and, the course twists and winds and everything is, can I make it to that mile marker before they get there? So, as the crow flies, I might have to run half the speed. So I just doing the best with what I've got.
Yeah.
I don't have the same gifts and talents they do. I've got a different, skill set and use those to the fullest I possibly can and be thankful for what I've got. So, just that dedication, the sacrifice, perseverance. You have ups and downs, all of those things. You see that in the way that these guys train and prepare the sacrifice. It's just the little things, even nutrition. If you're going out to eat, I'm just going to have water today because I know I've got a race tomorrow. So, but you just see those parallels.
I love the picture I saw of you cleaning the bottom of the shoes, that even the little details, they make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Christine, where do you see some of the faith parallels when it comes to running this race and running our life race with Jesus?
Sometimes you might not have a great day, might not have a great race or a great day of training, but you don't stop. You just try again the next day.
Yeah, awesome. Now, Mike, I want to ask you in particular. I know you can kind of tell the people who are born to be runners, and then me and you, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So on those days, and I know this is really important to you because you're a dad, and this is a part of your family dynamic. But on those days where you kind of stood at the start line and you looked at the finish line and you thought, no. How do you push through that? How do you get to the next level when you just feel like, man, it's just too much?
Well, I think it's just what you have to do within your own limitations. I tell a story about girls on the run, and you run with a running buddy. And I was Megan's running buddy when she was in third grade. And so, I ran because I started in the police academy, and that's when I started to run, was when I went through there. And I've kind of kept it up. And so I'm running this 5K with Megan. I get to mile 1. Megan, how you doing? She's like, I'm doing fine, Dad. So I'm like, okay. So we get to mile 2, and, she's going a pretty good pace here. I'm like, Megan, how you doing? Dad, I'm fine. Why do you keep asking? I'm like, because I'm beat. I'm exhausted here. So she just took off and ran. But, the thing is, when these guys run, and they run a lot faster, they're always winning their age groups, and I'm not, which is fine. But I get to the end. But they still encourage me. I don't have those gifts and talents, but no, and I'm moving one foot in front of the other, and I'm still getting there. Just using what I have. I have different abilities. I'm very determined. I won't give up. And those are things that serve me well in other parts of my life, and certainly in my faith journey as well.
I love the reminder that we are all in different places in the race, and that we don't all have to be at the same place, but the point is just putting that next foot in front of the other and keeping going and keeping doing what we're called to do. Well, church, will you thank them for sharing a little bit of their story with us? And thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You guys are runners, so I figure you just drink water all the time. Don't leave me hanging now with my, look at, right, come on now. There you go. All right, well done. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Some of what they taught us today is better than anything I could preach. The principles of how to run the race are so critical. And I just want to take just a couple of minutes as we close today to remind you that we have, here at Shiloh, we have tried to provide some practical tools for you if you're looking to get to that next level in your race running. Whether you're like me, you look at the 5K and you think, oh, somebody picked me up at mile 1, right? Or whether you're like them and you're thinking beyond that, half marathons, full marathons, wherever you are in the race. Here at Shiloh, we've developed what we call our core. And some of you have seen this before. We've got these at the back door if you want to grab one on your way out. It's just our mission, our vision, and our values. And our discipleship pathway really revolves around 4 key questions. And those key questions are, how am I worshiping, both publicly and privately? How am I growing in accountable community? How am I serving inside or outside the church? And how am I caring for those in need? And what we say is that if you want to run the race, you don't have to be the fastest person in the room, but if you want to run the race, what you ask is, how am I doing in each of these areas? And what would it look like for me, wherever I am in this race, to take one step closer to Jesus? Just take one step. I may not be Usain Bolt. I may not win the marathon. but what would it look like for me to get a little faster, a little bit better in one area? And so I just want to take a look at each of these areas and suggest some very practical things that you might want to consider as you kind of take a look at where you are in this race that God has called us to. The first question is, how am I worshiping, both publicly and privately? And what does it look like for me to go a little deeper in my worship life? And so for some of us, you may be new at this whole worship thing, and maybe you're just coming, maybe you're at that place where it's just coming to church and praying occasionally, right? And if you're coming to church and you're here today, you're in the race. That's good news, right? Just by virtue of you being here, even if somebody drugged you here today, you're in the race. But some of you may be asking, all right, what would it look like for me to go get a little better, take one step closer to Jesus? What if I made a faithful commitment to my church attendance or to my prayer? What if I chose, rather than just coming on Christmas and Easter, what if I chose to come 10 times a year? What if I chose to be there at least once a month? What if I chose to be there 26 times a year or half the times? What if I got really crazy and said, I'll be there 50 times this year? And I'll make a commitment to a regular time of prayer. Do you see how that's just one step closer to Jesus? And then what if you said, man, I want to add a time of personal daily devotion to my life. So my worship isn't just what happens in here on Sunday morning, but like Megan and Robin said, it's a 6-day-a-week kind of deal. And so I'm worshiping not only here, but at home as well. And then what if I want to go a little deeper than that, and I add a time of Sabbath to my life? And remember, Sabbath doesn't just mean taking a day off. Sabbath means dedicated time for God each day, each week, each month, each year, where I set aside some time just to be in the presence of God. And I've always believed that the deepest level of discipleship is not just when you're doing it for you, but when you turn around then are teaching and training others in the area of worship. So here's what I want to challenge you with. Wherever you find yourself on this race, no judgment. There is no judgment. The question I want to challenge you with is, what would it look like for you to take one step closer to Jesus in worship? And now think about the next question: how am I growing in accountable community? How am I growing in my faith, learning about God? For some of you, that may just start by just asking your God questions to people who might actually have a couple of decent answers. A lot of times, the frustration I have is people who are coming new to the faith, they'll ask their agnostic or their atheist friends their God questions and wonder why they get terrible answers, right? Maybe you start by asking the right people some of the hard questions. Maybe for you, the next step is for you to connect with other growing people, to surround yourself with other people who are trying to take one step closer to Jesus, to learn about God and to know more. Then maybe from there you find yourself in a Bible study or have a reading plan where you are learning and absorbing the wealth of knowledge found in God's Word and found in what other people have written about God's Word. And then maybe from there you want to go even deeper. And you engage in a committed relationship with others who are focused on growing and serving. This is what I call accountable community. This is not just the people who say hi to you when you show up to Bible study. These are the people who are going to ask you the hard questions. Hey, did you work out this week? Hey, did you read your Bible? Hey, did you pray? Hey, how is it with your soul? And kick your tail when you lie to them. Those are the people you want to have around you. And then maybe that deepest level is to become a leader of leaders, helping others grow in their journey. And look again, this path, this race here, wherever you are, no judgment. The question is, what would it look like for you to take one step closer to Jesus as you grow in accountable community. And the question of serving. How do I serve inside or outside the church? Maybe for you, it starts something real easy. You just look for those random acts of kindness, to be anonymously kind to other people. You give the guy in the corner $5. You leave a note for a friend. Whatever it is that you do, you help somebody in with their groceries. And it starts there. But then maybe you get a little deeper and you kind of come to maybe one of our staff team here and you say, hey, I want to get deeper into this serving thing. So tell me what it means to go a little deeper to serve here in the church. Get involved in one of these ministries, family ministries, or some other way to serve on occasion. And maybe then you want to go even deeper. Maybe you want to go to that next deeper point. You want to serve, have this regular rhythm of serving. Maybe you try a local mission trip. You go help Matthew 25, or you get out of your comfort zone a little bit here in the community. And then you go a little deeper. Because what I've learned about serving is that it's contagious. That once we start serving, we love to serve. And you go on one mission trip, and it leads to 2, and it leads to 3, and it leads to 10. And pretty soon you find yourself in another country serving people who don't even speak your language, don't understand your cultures, and you are learning more from them than you ever brought to them. And that deepest level is teaching and training others about the sacrificial life and what it means to truly serve and be an instrument of sacrifice for God. I don't know where you are on this list, but what would it look like for you to take one step closer to Jesus? The last question we ask is, how am I caring for those in need? What does it look like for me to care for those in need? And for some of you, it may just begin with going out of your way to bless somebody you know. You leave a note on your coworker's desk. You say something kind to your spouse. You do something nice to bless others because they need something. People you know. But then maybe you take it to the next level and you think about those people you may not know. Maybe you become a part of our care team and you visit people in the hospital, or you visit people who are shut in their homes, who are lonely and who are in need. Maybe you go even further and you explore your own heart passion place, and you find that place in your life that you know God is calling you to do something great as you care for others. Got to be honest with you, the more Julie comes home and talks about foster care, because she works at St. Joseph's Orphanage, the more I'm hearing God say, Dave, that's what your finish line looks like. That's what one of the things I'm calling you to do. And can I be really honest? That is not a race I really want to run. I raised my kids, right? I'm done. And yet I know this is a race that God is calling me to go on. What does it look like for me, your pastor, to go deeper, one step closer to Jesus every day? What does it look like for us to sacrifice for someone else? Not just give the leftovers we have, but truly sacrifice for people. And then to create systems of care and to recruit others to care for other people. Here's what I'm saying. Wherever you are in your faith race, in your journey, no judgment. Wherever you are is where you are, and it's okay. And it's good. You're in the race. The question I want to challenge you with is, what does it look like for you to take one step closer to Jesus? One step. And I know as you look at worship and growing and caring and serving, it seems also overwhelming. Or you see these great Christian figures in your life and you're thinking, I'll never be there. What I love is what I heard from Mike is, I don't have to be as fast as my daughters. I just have to be as fast as God has called me to be in this season of my life, and take one step in front of the other. Jesus ends the story with these words. Verse 13 says, therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. And here's what I hear Jesus saying when he says, keep watch. Jesus is saying, hey, stay in shape. Be ready. Work out. Be prepared. Fill your oil, because you never know when a race is going to break out. You never know when God is going to call you to the start line. You never know when God is going to use you in a powerful, life-changing kind of way. And so, church, I just want to invite you to ask the question, what does it look like for you, wherever you are, to go one step closer to Jesus? And if you're not really sure what that looks like, I want to invite you to come talk to me. Come talk to one of our staff team. Talk to somebody you trust. And just say, hey, listen, I've been kind of running the same race for a long time. And I know God's calling me to something deeper. But I'm not just sure how to get there. So let me pray for you today. Holy God, send your spirit of love and of courage down upon your people. Remind us that we are who we are because of you. That the race that we are in is a race toward you. And that, God, we are not running this race alone, but we are running it with you. God, we thank you for all that you have done, for all that you are, and for the ways in which you strengthen us to run and not grow weary, to walk and not faint. Remind us, God, that we are in this race together and we need one another. In Jesus' holy name, amen.